All right, then. Senator John Enoh is a new Minister of State for Industry and Trade and Investment Ministry. He has expressed his commitments to driving Nigeria's economic growth through industrial development. The minister stressed the critical role of industrialization in national economic development and restated the need for strategic leadership and policy direction to boost the industry sector. Senator Enoh had called for collaboration among staffs, saying that there was a need to review existing plans and policies to better align with contemporary challenges. He then expressed enthusiasm about harnessing the ministry's energy and commitment to making a tangible impact on the industrial landscape. Now let's talk to the minister live, the Minister of Industry, the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Senator John Enoh. He joins us live from our Abuja studios. Senator, good afternoon, and thank you so very much for joining Business Nigeria this afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me join you.
I think we should start our conversation with your leadership drive in industrial development. What is the focus? Of course, it's a new year, 2025 and beyond.
Oh, well, I think 2025, matters a great deal, for the ministry and for the sector, the industrial sector. I think that it's, going to be a transformative year for industry. It's going to be, a lot of the matters that have to do with Nigeria's industrial competitiveness, Nigeria's ability to compete, the global industrial space, how much, the ministry and the sector are able to do in terms of driving, the required industrial growth, which the country needs if it ever thinks to develop. I think that these are the key issues, and I think that 2025 is going to be that remarkable year that I expect that we should be able to, the government of, our dear president, in terms of his renewed hope agenda, has industrial transformation as key, and, the ability of the government and of the ministry and of the country to be able to achieve this is going to be measured a lot in terms of what the kind of accomplishments that we're going to make in 2025 will be.
Interesting. Now, the National Automotive Industry Development Plan is something that many are, of course, interested in, and, of course, a lot of discussions around that space. What sort of policy are you looking at to help actualize this mandate?
Well, it's we have in place the National Automotive Industry Development Plan. It's a very key. First, the automotive, sector of the ministry is very key, is very cardinal, is very critical, because in itself is a pathway to so much that we expect to happen in terms of economic growth and development, in terms of job creation, in terms of our competitiveness with our neighbors, and in terms of how, much space we're able to, to occupy. So it's it's so key that, I recall that late last year, when I represented Mr. President in a technical, it represented the ministry in a technical meeting in Addis Ababa that focused on trade, on industry, on tourism, on mineral, resources. And as I was stepping out, at the sidelines, I had a chance meeting with the Secretary General of the ACFCTA, and he was quite, the first thing he talked to me about was Nigeria's automotive industry. Try to compare it to what is going on in South Africa and in Morocco, and said the rest of Africa was waiting for Nigeria. And, very early in terms of my engagement with the agencies under industry, and one of those key agencies is NADDC. The DG had convened a conference, in Lagos that brought together key players in this sector. And the state of play is that, first we talked about policy. We need to be very precise. There have been a lot of policies that have been churned out, in not just any DDC, but in different other sectors. So our precision has to do with the extent to which we're able to align, policy and say how we can get policy to deliver in terms of what is measurable, what is achievable. And, the key indications, of the National, Automotive Industry Development Plan has to do with, what are the key priorities. This plan was first put in place in about 2013, and by 2023 it was reviewed at the point that it is now. The industry players, want to have something that is dependable, reliable, and that is predictable, which is why this plan and policy is already trying to amend the National, Automotive, Design and Development Council, law or act and things like that. And the key elements of this have to do with, what our key, expectations are in terms of, aspirations. We are hoping, for example, that we should be able to have, in terms of the local, when you assemble a car in Nigeria, the local content should be up to about 40%. We are hoping, for example, that in terms of job creation, the direct and indirect jobs should be about 200,000. In terms of, seeing how we can transition from SKD to CKD and all of those things, and also go into, electric vehicles. So in terms of the leadership that, we're going to provide, first in terms of sector-wide leadership, in the session I had with MAN and key industry players, the OPS and all of that in Lagos, I had committed to setting up what I call the Industrial Revolution Work Group. This work group is going to be like, for me, I've said it elsewhere, like a war, cabinet that is going to be implementing most of the policies and decisions that we're going to be pursuing, just so that we can have results that are measurable. I think that for the auto industry in particular, we're not going to keep relying so much on imported, Belgium cars, imported, cars and all of that. As a country, we need to be a bit self-reliant as well in terms of the quantity and the volume of materials that are in country that make up, a finished, car. All of these things we're going to pursue and going to try to make sure that we have achievable and measurable results.
Interesting stuff, Honorable Minister. But next is job creation, economic diversification, and MSME growth. President Bola Tinubu obviously is focused on creating more jobs and particularly making this environment more friendly for MSMEs and even for the automotive industry. But I'd like you to take us through the possibilities, actualities in this segment of Nigeria's economy. It remains very strategic. You agree with me?
Yeah, it does. I think that, the key, the pathway to, how much jobs we're able to create, it's also going to be a function of the extent of industrial growth that we're able to achieve. And I think that is why, on and on, in terms of, the impact and the kind of enablement that is occurring in manufacturing and MSMEs. MSMEs, for example, are the engine room, of our economy. And, a set of decisions and policies are already in place, by this administration. For example, there's a 200 billion, that was provided by the government, by President Bola Tinubu, and that is already being administered by BOI. It has a component, for example, 75 billion for MSMEs and 75 billion for manufacturing. The idea is to see the extent to which local capacity can be enhanced, can grow. And the more there is an expansion and enhancement of local capacity, the more we're able to manufacture in country, the more we're able to provide the space needed for people, to get gainfully employed and gainfully. And in all of this, you're talking about the different skill sets that are required for manufacture, the different skill sets that are required, the extent to which, the kinds of incentives and tax breaks that government, the kind of regulatory environment, all of these are being put in place to be able to enable creation, job creation. You talked about, we started this discussion with a focus on the automotive industry. The automotive industry alone, worldwide, it's an industry that provides, about 60 million jobs. That is because the value chain is great, from steel to plastics to and the kinds of regulations of all of these. All of these are part of the things that are part of the industry push. And the idea is that as we make gains on all of this, we provide enough space for people to play, and therefore job growth and job expansion, is able to, be appreciated. Back at the history of our country, in the early 70s, we started a journey together with South Africa. We pursued the same set of policies. What are these policies? Trying to see how you can encourage local production and manufacture of vehicles, trying to see how you can, try to put in place policies that, for example, limited or restricted the kind of, access that we had in terms of foreign-made vehicles coming into our country, the kinds of incentives that were provided to encourage foreign direct investments, and the kind of local capacity that we could get in place. way back, since after then, and with those early 70s, of course, we had, foreign companies partnering with local companies, and we had, the likes of Peugeot, the likes of Volkswagen, had a lot of those, companies. But what has happened? Because those policies and those sets of incentives weren't sustained, where we are today, we've been left, far behind. So the key is to be able to do what? Return back to those things that we're pursuing that got us to make those achievements. And in doing so, it's set on a list of things that need to be done. At the moment, for example, because of the work of NADDC, of course, you have some players that are actually, producing and assembling, vehicles in our country. I remember when I was invited to the conference that was held by NADDC in Lagos. And, the vehicle that came to pick me from the airport, for example, was a locally assembled vehicle. This, for me, was key. Was key because we need to be, intentional and deliberate about seeing what that we can get to happen. And I think that the idea is, for example, in terms of, how much effort are we making to see how it's not about manufacturing an entire car and sending an entire car in Nigeria. It's about the various component parts that make up, car manufacture. And what are those component parts? I mean, how much of the leather parts are produced in country? How much of the plastic parts are produced in country? How much of all of that is going on? Quite apart from the state of the law, quite apart from what NADDC is doing, there's also the added challenge in terms of how much local skills are we able to now create, just so that we have an entire ecosystem of all of these skill sets available and that are able to support, a vibrant automotive industry in our country. That is because, like I said at the beginning, this sector is so key that getting it right has a way, it's so transformative, that affects almost every other sector. And, the NADDC is also pushing the case for electronic vehicles. Now, we're not manufacturing for years, we're manufacturing for today and for the future. And that means that the way the world is moving towards what? Electronic vehicles and all of that. So we have to concentrate on innovation and the kind of research and development that can take place that can support that forward-looking sector. And all of this, the ministry and the sector is doing to support what NADDC is actually doing at this point in time.
Indeed, you got me there, Honorable Minister. I was moving towards electric vehicles and what are the plans. So what more would you want to tell investors and business owners at this time as we wrap up this conversation?
Well, you know that our country is usually blessed in terms of lithium and other, treasured mineral, resources that are components of having to, get it right in terms of, electronic vehicles. Namely, batteries and, the key components of the charging infrastructure and all that are the kinds of things that we need to push. Unfortunately, we are already blessed with that. So the idea is to see how we can develop more and be able to be competitive in terms of the production of batteries, in terms of the charging system and infrastructure, and how much that enables the future of electronic vehicles. And so we're not there yet, but what is important is that NADDC and the sector, the industry sector of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment are alive to the possibilities that are bound, are alive to the fact that that is the future, and everybody is getting prepared to make sure that we tap on it and get the country to play a big role in terms of its international competitiveness in this sector.
Senator John Enoh, Minister of State for Industry, Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, would like to have you again after some time to do an evaluation of all of these projections to see where we are with this. And we hope you honor our invitation then. I must thank you so much for joining us this Monday afternoon. We appreciate this.
I'm happy to join you at any time you think that I need to be here to be able to speak on industry.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Do enjoy the rest of your day.